What's up, y'all? Welcome to our ninth interview. Today we will be interviewing Julie Dobbs. Julie Dobbs currently works for the infamous Dallas radio station, The Ticket. Julie is on from 10 to 3, where she breaks the news with her ticket tickers and then joins in with everything else, adding great commentary. And before she worked for The Ticket, she was a talented reporter, editor, producer, and a host on Fox Sports Southwest covering the Dallas Stars. She also had a brief time as an in-game reporter for the Texas Rangers, and she served as a reporter for Texas Rangers pre- and post-game shows on TXTA 21. When she is not doing her ticket tickers, she hosts the Mom Game Pod with Emilly Jones. The Mom Game Pod covers moms, sports, and everything in between. They have had Alex Snodgrass, Drew Robinson, and Ian Kinsler on their podcast as well. Thank you, Julie, for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. That was a great introduction. You've done your research.
Yes, I enjoyed reading the athletic article. And then the first question we have is, what methods did you find most helpful when you were a reporter, editor, producer, and host for Fox Sports Southwest?
Well, as you can tell there, I did quite a few different roles. So I think the thing that got me in the door was trying to learn as much as I could, like behind the scenes stuff, especially editing. I learned how to edit on Avid, the program that we ended up using at Fox. I learned at school at Mizzou all about editing. And then I got an internship at Fox the summer before my senior year and just kept in touch with some people there and was able to go and interview after I graduated. Actually, twist there. So I kept in touch with the people at Fox. They told me about a job that was with the Dallas Cowboys. I actually started at the Dallas Cowboys for one season, and then I went over to Fox. But all of that was because I kept in touch with people that I had met through my internship, and then also I just was really trying to learn as much as I could. So I would say that anybody that's wanting to get into anything on air, don't single out just being on air. Like, try to learn how to do everything, learn how to edit, learn how to produce, obviously learn how to write, all of those things, because usually you get your foot in the door as one of those other jobs. And I know this is how the ticket works as well. And then you kind of work your way up to being on air, to doing what it is that you want to do. So I would say just that method of trying to learn as much as I could, and then being willing to do whatever job they wanted me or needed me to do at Fox is how I hung around there for so long, and then finally got to be like doing some on-air stuff for the Stars, which is what I ultimately wanted.
Well, that's great. And then when you were trying to learn everything, was there a certain person that really helped you in teaching you some tricks of the trade?
There was, so the person I mentioned that I stayed in touch with, her name was Amanda, and she was a producer at Fox. And when I was an intern there, she was like so awesome and really took me under her wing and showed me extra stuff. Because as an intern, and this is what you'll find, like, an internship will get you in the door somewhere, but you have to do everything else. Like, you have to create the relationships, and you have to ask, like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? Because usually it's a bunch of people that are like really busy, and they're not going to seek you out unless they really need you to do something. But you're not going to get the most out of your internship if you're just waiting for someone to give you a task. Like, you really learn more if you're going up and almost like bugging people all the time, like, hey, what are you doing? Can I just watch you? What do you need help with? And teach yourself the skills that you don't already know. And so I did that with Amanda, and she was wonderful. And she is the one that told me about the Cowboys job, and I ended up getting that job. But she's also the one that I ended up going back over to Fox kind of for, and worked with her for a long time. And she has been that way. She's just one of those people that has been that way with like all of the interns. She's just wonderful. I'm actually like texting with her tonight about going to dinner tomorrow. So here we are, I don't know, a lot of years later. And like, we still stay in touch. and she's out of the industry now, but like kind of still doing some freelance work in TV when she can. And I'm still hanging on to the industry and radio. But it just goes to show, like, those people that you meet, there's always going to be those people that really make a difference in your career, and hang around those people and ask them a lot of questions. But I would definitely say she's been an awesome friend and mentor to me.
So how has your preparation differed between all the jobs that you've had?
Like, preparation for the specific
Yes.
job, I guess. Um, it just depends on what job I'm doing, because I've done a lot of jobs. In TV, I'll just talk about like the stars reporting, because that was fun, because I started out as just editing highlights for stars pre and post game shows, and then um, I started producing the Stars Insider show, and then they needed a reporter for that show, so I started reporting, and then all of a sudden we needed a host, so I became the host and the producer of the show. So all of my preparation was very different based on what I was doing that day, but I would say kind of the overarching theme for the preparation for all of the jobs is just like trying to be as knowledgeable as possible on what you're covering. And that really helped me get to become like the rinkside reporter for the Stars, and that was just a lot of like, and hockey was not something I grew up watching, so it was something I really had to kind of like teach myself and learn about and immerse myself with. And um so I would just say, like, just kind of over preparing in TV and in radio. Like, you never want to get caught off guard, not knowing what you're talking about. And people can see quickly if, like, you're just, oh, I just want to be on TV or whatever, but you don't really know what you're not studying, or you're not putting the time in. So I would say that was one common thing, was just kind of over preparation for both of those. um, TV and radio are really different too, though. Like, radio, and especially the ticket, you just never know what you're gonna get. Like, you never know what kind of topic matter is gonna come up. So it's hard to like study, about everything in the world, because anything could come up. But when you do know, like, if I do know, okay, I know we're gonna be talking about this or talking about that, especially stars. um, I want to come and be prepared for whatever might come my way. So just probably over preparation is something that was common between them. Um, but there's obviously a lot of differences too.
Yeah. So you mentioned how you didn't grow up with hockey, and how did you learn so much? Because I really enjoyed hearing your Zin bins, and it took me a long time to get familiar with hockey. So what was the journey with that like?
Yeah, thanks for the Zinbin shout out. um yeah, it was interesting. So I was just editing at Fox, like I said, I was doing cutting highlights for pre and post game shows, and it was Stars, it was Rangers, it was Oklahoma City Thunder. Uh, the Pelicans came along there after a while. Mavericks. So it was doing a lot of different things. And then once I'd get the Stars shift or whatever, it was kind of like, whoa, I don't know. I didn't, I'd watched all those, I'd at least watched the sports, right? And I hadn't watched a ton of hockey. So I just like kind of pick people's brains about it that were there, and then I watched the games. What was really fun was like getting to watch the games with some of the analysts, so the people that were hosting the pre and post game show, like Craig Ludwig and Brent Severin, and like uh, kind of sitting there and listening to their analysis of it. um, that really helped, and I started doing that, like, I don't know, there's probably like 5 years of that before I ever did anything on air talking about hockey. But it was just really watching the games closely, and then the breakdowns closely, and listening and asking questions, um, to people when I had a question, because there were a ton of questions. So just really kind of trying to focus in on the one sport and surrounding myself with people that played it or were professionals talking about it, and not being afraid to sound like I wasn't trying to pretend like I was an expert. It was like not being afraid to say like, hey, I'm just learning this. Like, tell me this or tell me that, or what does this mean? So that all really helped. And then once I started getting more and more opportunities, and I thought, wow, this is like doing the ringside reporting for this team is something that would, is kind of becoming my ultimate goal. Like, what do I need to do to get there? And that was just really studying. It was like reading every article about the team and like every blog and getting to know all the players and figuring out why coaches did things one way. Or like I remember thinking about like how like the line changing or like putting lines together and being like, why do they do that? Like, why do they put these three players together? Like, what's the, and I just like, I've kind of just started asking all the players and coaches and trying to figure out, well, why this guy with that guy and what makes sense. And there was a point it just started to click. But at that point I was able to kind of like zero in on like, this is what I want to do. And this sport's really fun. And so I just kind of kept at it, and then got to do the on-air ringside reporting, which was so much fun. And then now, of course, I ended up meeting my husband through that job, and he's on the coaching staff. So we talk about hockey a lot.
How long do you think it took you to become fully comfortable with your hockey knowledge?
I mean, there's still a lot to learn. I don't think I'll ever feel like I'm an expert by any means, but I think like being in Dallas, not a lot of people even try. So if you try, you're one step ahead. Like if you try to learn it, and then I would say once I don't know, after like 5 to 7 years of covering the team at some capacity is when I really started to feel comfortable. And you have to feel comfortable because after the games you're thrown in there in the locker room, and all the cameras are on the player, but they're also recording everything you say as a reporter. So I would say it was probably at least 5 years until I really started feeling comfortable. And then once you do, and you kind of have that epiphany, like, okay, I can do this, and I know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to worry about what anybody else is thinking anymore. That's like it's kind of like a breakthrough moment. It's like, just do your thing. And then once you like start developing that relationship with the team and the fans, the Stars have like the best fans. And so once I, started really getting to know them and getting compliments from them or whatever, I was like, okay, I'm in. Like they are accepting me and as a hockey person. And so I found, I took a lot of pride in that, and just kind of really trying to follow as much as I could and know everything that I could.
So after in the athletic article, it said like how you had a part-time job with the Ticket, but then you hadn't done anything full-time for a while when you joined the Ticket, because you were being a full-time mom. How was that transition going into full-time to the Ticket?
It was good. It was a kind of unique situation because I had been doing Saturdays there, and that's it, and spending a lot of time with my son, who was like 2 at the time, after I left Fox. And then I interviewed for the job at the Ticket when my daughter, or when I was about to have, like the day before I gave birth. So I think that was in the article. So that was funny. And it was just kind of like, well, I know what it's like now to be a mom, and I know that I want to work as well. I want to be able to do both. So I was confident because I'd had like some time home with my son. And so I was ready to go back to work. And I knew that with the Ticket, like when a job opens, you have to grab it. Doesn't come back around often. So I was all in at that point and had Anna. And then when she turned 5 weeks, I went to work full time. So it was an adjustment. But luckily, we've found some really good like preschools and places to send the kids during the day, and my husband's off in the summer, so that helps too. But it was definitely a transition for sure that I know nobody else there is really dealing with because they're all dudes.
Piggybacking on that topic, what has been your favorite part of doing the podcast now, the Mom Game podcast?
The podcast has been wonderful. It's been so fun because Emily and I are in charge. Like it's our own thing. So, being on the ticket is great because I love all of those guys and they make me laugh all day, but I'm kind of like just a pog in the in the machine. I'm a little piece to the big puzzle. And with the Mom Game, it's our show. So that's a lot of fun. We're really trying to not alienate either side. Like we want male listeners, we want female listeners, we want sports fans, we want non-sports fans. So we try to bring on like, the big name athletes, but not talk X's and O's, but talk more about life and like being a dad if they're a dad, and how they handle family life in their sport. And then we also bring people on, like you said, Alex Snodgrass, people that are like famous on Instagram or parenting experts. We've had Emily's preacher on twice just because he gives like wonderful life advice and we feel like everybody can need it. So what we love about the podcast is that A, we can do whatever we want, and B, we try to just like talk about things that matter, and cut out all the kind of fluff. And we like to laugh and have fun, but we want people to feel like they get something out of listening to the show. So that's been so much fun. And for me, it's allowed me to still do interviews with people because I did that for so long, and I'm not doing that on the ticket. I'm just kind of like, making jokes and doing tickers. So to be able to like actually do long form interviews that matter is really fun.
For the interviews, how was the Drew Robinson interview? Because you mentioned in the interview that it was your first time meeting him, and it was a very emotionally packed episode. So, what were your thoughts on and like with the Ian Kinsler one, that was really funny, and then Drew Robinson, it was just two different tones, but they were both great. So, how did that work?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah. You're exactly right. Like you never know what you're going to get, and they were completely different. And with Drew, it's interesting. It's like you want to talk and you want to get to know him a little bit, but you know why he's there and you know what story you want to tell. And it's a hard story to kind of like bring up and get into. But with him, he had gotten to a point where he was comfortable talking about it and doing media, and that's kind of part of the reason why he is doing media, is because he wants to get the word out about mental health. And obviously a lot of people are going through things like that, so he's trying to get his story out there. So he was awesome, and he was great, just like being so vulnerable with us. And luckily Emily knew him, and so that's why we were able to get him on. And she had a relationship with him that he knew we were going to make him feel comfortable, and we weren't going to try to throw anything crazy at him or surprises or anything like that. And I think that's something that the Mom Game podcast is a possibility because of Emily and my relationships with people that we've built over the years. So that's another thing I guess I would say for like advice. It's like build those relationships and don't burn any bridges. And because we wouldn't be able to do our own show if we didn't know anybody or didn't have anybody that would come on our show. But because we've both like tried really hard to do things the right way and make those connections and be good people, then people will come on our show. But yeah, he was really wonderful, and it was a crazy emotional show and story, and we were just so thankful that he was able to come on the show with us and that he was so willing to tell his story. And yeah, Ian Kinsler was great because I felt like he gave us a side of himself that he hadn't really put out there onto the media ever. And it was much more likable than I think people remembered him being, when he played for the Rangers and was kind of like bristly to the media and all that. He like explained it, so everyone has a story to tell. And usually when people are that way to the media as a player, there's a reason. So we try to just like, get to the meat of it with the guys on the podcast. I'm like, let's just be real. So what's the deal? Why were you an a-hole to the media? And he was great talking about it. So, and Drew was wonderful too. So I think the athletes see some value in coming on a platform, like a long form platform like that, where they can just really talk and be themselves. And that's why we love it.
And then going back to the ticket, what was something you didn't that you didn't expect when you first enrolled at the ticket, but it's been a pleasant surprise?
I think it would be just how wonderful all of the people there are, and like how quickly we all kind of formed friendships, like real friendships, because everybody has like their on-air personality or whatever, but I think what makes the ticket like so great and unique is, and have been able to last so long doing what they do, is because the people all really like love each other, I guess, to sound like silly. I mean, that sounds silly, but everybody really does. And it's kind of this like we're all in mentality, and pick up slack where you have to. And a lot of people work for not much money because you just want to be a part of it. And the people there are really, really great. Like there's not one bad egg, there's not one person you see and you're like, oh God, there's so-and-so, everyone's just like, they're all really good people. So I think that not that I didn't think they were good people, but I didn't think they would be like this awesome, I guess. That's a pleasant surprise for sure.
It's definitely great.
Shifting over to the Stars type of thing, do you think they will rebound from their underwhelming season?
Oh yeah, I totally think they will rebound from their underwhelming season. It was quite underwhelming, wasn't it? Who in a million years thought that they'd go all the way to the Stanley Cup final and then not make the playoffs the following season? But it was such a weird season. I'm like, you just can't judge the team too much because of all of the injuries that they sustained and of the crazy schedule that they had to fight through, where even if somebody did get injured, there's no time to recover, because there's games every other night in hockey. That's brutal. Like that's brutal to be playing every other night and playing as hard as they needed to play, because like every game mattered, all the way till the end. And I think the way they finished the season so strong just shows you like the character they have, and the buy-in that they have to the group and to Rick Bowness as a coach. So I think once you get Tyler Seguin back, he was back at the end of the season and looked good. Once you get him for a full season, Radulov back for a full season, goaltending situation, hopefully Ben Bishop will be back for a full season and be Ben Bishop, because Anton Hudobin had to be the number one guy. And I think we all agree, like he would agree that he had an off season too. So I think once you get all of those pieces back to the puzzle and that everybody's healthy, that's the team, the way it's built out on paper, that will finally have what they want it to be when they put the team together. When Jim Nill like put the team together and he and Rick Bowness were sitting there doing their lineups before this season started, like you think you're going to have something to work with, and then that totally gets screwed up. So they did the best they could with what they had. And I think they were just probably, they had played longer than anybody else outside of the Tampa Bay Lightning into the bubble last season, and not much of an off season. And then you get going again, and then you have injuries, and it's just like, they just, to me, looked tired and hurt, and they bought in anyways and tried as hard, as they could to make the playoffs in the end. But I think this off season's exactly what they needed. And I'm, as always, like pretty excited about next season. We'll see if they add anybody, if they add any free agents or whatever, but definitely think they can bounce back.
Yeah, I'm definitely hoping for it. And then you mentioned Tampa Bay Lightning. We're of course recording during the Stanley Cup Game 1. Can you just give us your thoughts? Who are you rooting for, and do you think they win, or who do you think wins?
I'm definitely not rooting for Tampa Bay. So we're still bitter about last season and having to watch them lift the Stanley Cup when we really wanted to. And when all the guys were in the bubble just watching, and they just sacrificed everything, including leaving their family for so long, and then they have to sit there and watch Tampa Bay win. Tampa Bay is a really good team, though, so you have to give them credit. And obviously, it wasn't just a fluke, because here they are right back there. And I think Andrei Vasilevsky is the main reason why. He's just kind of been unstoppable lately, but I am not going for them. I am going for the Canadians, I guess. I mean, I'm not like waving a flag and cheering or anything, but I do love that Corey Perry's back in a Stanley Cup final, because as much as I disliked him before he came to Dallas, I, like a lot of Stars fans, really kind of loved having him here and learned that he's actually a really good dude and a really good player, and that kind of gritty type of player that can survive in the NHL for a long time, as he's doing. So it's really cool for him. Same like Carey Price. I think it would be awesome if he was able to win a cup. He's been there a really long time. So I think they're, in my opinion, just a little more likable, and I don't hate anybody on their team. And also, it'd just be, I know all of Canada would go insane, and there hasn't been a Stanley Cup winner in Canada in a long time. So I think that's kind of cool. So we'll see. I don't know. It was 1-0 when we started this Tampa Bay in Game 1. I don't know what it is now, but I definitely would love to see Montreal over Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I definitely would like that too. So
Tampa Bay has become the enemy.
Yeah, we can't like Pat Maroon. That's a Dallas Stars unwritten rule, correct?
Exactly. That's
Okay,
exactly right.
I'm getting better in my knowledge. Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you so
You
much
are,
for joining us.
yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
We don't like him.
So
yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. It was great to meet you guys, and good luck with your show the rest of the way.
Everyone listening, and I'll definitely be subscribing. I'm already subscribed, but I'll be looking for the next interview. So thank you everyone for listening.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we have Marty Turco episode dropping this week.
All right. I'm looking forward to it.